All right. In this video, I want to talk a little bit more about deductive arguments. I'll give a few more examples of deductive arguments. We'll also talk a little bit about how we can determine whether a deductive argument is valid or invalid. Remember, the terms valid and invalid, as well as sound and unsound, apply to deductive arguments only. Inductive arguments, analogical arguments cannot be valid or invalid. They cannot be sound or unsound. We'll talk a little bit more about them in another video here soon. Pardon me. Remember the definition of validity. We're going to talk mostly about validity as opposed to soundness in this video. A deductive argument is valid if the conclusion follows necessarily from the premises. That is, a deductive argument is valid if it's set up in such a way that if the premises are true, then the conclusion must be true. If it doesn't follow in that way, then it's invalid. Of course, another way of saying this is that an argument is valid if it's impossible to have true premises and a false conclusion. It's invalid if it is possible to have true premises and a false conclusion, because the premises of a valid argument lead necessarily to the conclusion. All right, we've looked at a couple of examples. Here's another one. All humans are mortal. Socrates is a human. Well, therefore, Socrates is mortal. I've put these three lines there, three or four dotted lines there to indicate the separation between the premises and the conclusion. That's something you'll see once in a while. Sometimes you'll see three little dots in a triangle, and that represents therefore, thus, lets you know that the conclusion is coming. All right, let's take a look at this one. If it is raining, then the sidewalks are wet. It is raining. Therefore, the sidewalks are wet. Now, we're going to be talking only about the valid or invalid question here. I'm looking out, and here where I am when I'm recording this, it is not raining. But that might be very different where you are when you are watching this. Anyway, we're not going to concern ourselves with the soundness, but we can certainly judge whether this is a valid argument or not. Remember, validity has to do with the structure of the argument only, not with its content. If it is raining, then the sidewalks are wet. It is raining. Therefore, the sidewalks are wet. Yeah, that follows. Here's the form. If P, then Q. P, well, therefore Q. I'll put this on the same page here so we can see it together. If P, then Q, P. Well, therefore Q. It's valid. How about this one? If it is raining, then the sidewalks are wet. The sidewalks are wet. Therefore, it is raining. Take a minute. Is this one valid or invalid? Well, this one has a different structure. This one is invalid. If P, then Q. Q, therefore P. Let's put this together so we can see all on the same page. All right. If it is raining, then the sidewalks are wet. If P, then Q. The sidewalks are wet. Q. Therefore, it is raining. P. No, this is invalid. Look, it's should be clear that you could have true premises and a false conclusion. Uh, premise one might be true, and it might also be true that the sidewalks are wet, and yet it's not raining. Maybe the sidewalks are wet for another reason. Maybe someone left the sprinklers on all night. Maybe there was just a water balloon fight there on the sidewalks. In any case, this is an invalid argument. We can prove this because we can see that it's possible to have true premises and a false conclusion. How about this one? This is an odd one. We're not going to see very many one premise deductive arguments, but they are possible. And if you go far enough in formal logic, it's important that they are possible. This is one of the moves that you might have to make in a proof. Is something like Bill is rich and famous, therefore Bill is rich. A has properties P and Q, well, therefore A has property P. This is a valid argument. I can't imagine anybody actually making this argument. I don't know that it's necessary to state, but this would be an example of a valid one premise argument. Although, again, a one premise deductive arguments are not going to be common at all. How about this one? Jill or Mike will go to the movies. Jill will not go. Well, therefore, Mike will go. What do you think, valid or invalid? If you said valid, good job. This is a valid argument. This is known as a disjunctive syllogism. How about something like this one? I think this one is tougher. All antelopes are bison. All bison are caribou. Thus, all antelopes are caribou. One of the reasons that I think this kind of argument can be confusing is because of the content. We can't hardly escape looking at this content and say, well, look, I know very, very basics of zoology. I know that antelope are bison and the bison are not caribou. And what are they even talking about here? This is, well, when we're determining validity, we can forget all that. Remember, validity has not a whit to do with the content of an argument. It has to do with the structure. So, is this a valid argument or is it invalid? Is the structure right? Does the conclusion follow from the premises? Another way of saying it, if the premises are true, is the conclusion necessary? Is the conclusion guaranteed? Yes, it is. If you said valid, that's right. How might we determine this? Well, here's a method. I call this just the circle method, or the circles method maybe. All antelope are bison. So I'm going to draw a circle here. It's going to represent all the antelope. And all of them are going to be contained within my circle of bison. So sort of clumsy, but I'm going to hold that up there. All the antelope, all the A's are inside the B. Now, all the B's are also inside the C's. So let's draw that circle. Now there's a big circle, and the A's are all inside the B's, and the B's are all inside the C's. And with that, we have just proven that this argument is valid. Yeah, if all the antelope are bison and all the bison are caribou, then it must follow that all the antelope are caribou. So, a perfectly good argument? Of course not. Of course not. Validity is only one of the two things that needs to be the case. We also have to have all true premises. But in this video, we're primarily just looking at the idea of validity. There are lots of ways to figure out whether an argument is valid or invalid. Let's look at another one. All right. All Italians are Europeans, and all Venetians, that is, people from the city of Venice, are Europeans. Thus, all Venetians are Italians. Again, you might be tempted to look at the content and say, well, this looks right. Yeah, if you're from Italy, then you're from Europe. If you're from Venice, then you're in Europe. And everybody in Venice, they're Italians. Everybody from Venice is also an Italian because Venice is in Italy. Looks right. But wait, we've not tested for its validity. It wouldn't matter if the premises are true and the conclusion is true if it doesn't hang together right. So let's see if this is a valid argument. Here is the structure of the argument. All A are B, all C are B, and therefore all C are A. Is that a valid structure? Well, here's another way, besides using the circles. Here's another way we can prove whether it's valid or invalid. Let's replace all the variables here with other terms. We'll choose terms in a way so as to see if we can get true premises and a false conclusion. Because if we can ever have true premises and a false conclusion, if that's possible, then we know we've got an invalid argument. So all A or B. Let's choose A, cats. B, let's choose animals. C, we'll replace with dogs. All cats are animals, true. All dogs are animals, true. Therefore, all dogs are cats. Nope, false. We've got an invalid argument here. At first blush, this might have looked okay. The premises are true, the conclusion is true, but the conclusion does not follow necessarily from the premises. It's not a valid argument. All right, just a couple more things in this video. First, what do we know for sure about the conclusion of a sound argument? We know it's true. Deductive arguments only can give us certainty, and only when that argument is sound. That is to say, when it is valid and has all true premises. Both conditions need to obtain in order for an argument to be sound. But if it is, we can know that the conclusion is true. All right, here's another question, sort of a tricky one. What do we know about the conclusion of an unsound argument? What do you think? Nothing. Nothing. We don't know. It might be true, it might be false, we don't know. Look, I can make a terrible argument. I could say, you see me and say, hey, is that Dr. Long over there in that bar? Oh, you can go say hello to that guy, and I'm sitting there, crying into my beer, all lonely, and I say, hey, friend, I just saw a beautiful butterfly, and it just floated right up, right into a double rainbow. So you see, God exists. Well, that's a terrible argument. But that's all right. Just because you got a terrible argument, it doesn't follow that the conclusion is false nor true. I haven't proven anything. I just haven't shown anything. All I know is that the conclusion is not proven based on my dumb argument. So what do we know about the conclusion of a sound argument? It's got to be true. What do we know about the conclusion of an unsound argument? Nothing. Might be true, might be false. So can you have an unsound argument with a true conclusion? How about a valid, let's say a valid unsound argument with a true conclusion? Well, as we just said, yes, you can. You could have an unsound argument. It could be a valid one. It could be an invalid one. It could have a true conclusion, but it would just happen to be true. We wouldn't be proving it true. It could just happen to be true. Here's an example. All cars have four doors. My Kia is a car, thus my Kia has four doors. First thing we do, anytime we see a deductive argument, the first thing we should do, ask whether or not it's valid. Is this a valid argument? Yes, it is. It is set up in such a way that the conclusion follows necessarily from the premises. Now, if the premises are all true, then we have a sound argument. All cars have four doors? No, obviously not. That's false. We can stop right there. My Kia is a car. I don't own a Kia truck or a motorcycle if such things exist. I do own a Kia and it's a car. Also, the conclusion happens to be true. My Kia does have four doors. So, perfectly good argument? No, of course not. I haven't proven a thing. The conclusion is true, but it just happened to be true. We didn't establish the truth of the conclusion through this argument. All right. More in the next video.